We enter on the Worm Queen, the playful yet unstable clone of the former Orokin that ruled over the Grineer, engaging in a little play therapy.
No, I insist. You first.
If you insist. How kind. How very kind.
Kind? You must be thinking of my sister.
Where is the fair lady, then? Should we deal her in?
Well, she sort of lost her head the last we played.
Oh? How scandalous.
She is interrupted when a Drakmaster herds a dog into her throne room. The Worm Queen has kept them waiting.
My queen! The Drak grow restless. Where are we to hunt?
To Lua.
But she has now found her target, a Warframe she wishes to add to her kennel.
Tenno, Lua has felt my touch as I have felt its in return. Rescuing Lua and you from the void may be changing this place. The void stirs and shakes Lua to its core, exposing ancient halls long since abandoned. Smelling possible treasure, the Grineer Worm Queen ordered her troops to descend upon these newly exposed halls. They were instantly corrupted by its long-dormant Orokin neural sentry. The secrets that lie buried here are yours, not theirs. Infiltrate the Uvarium and Circulus. Survive the corrupted, and we will reclaim those secrets together.
The Lotus has been informed of the Worm Queen's operation. Though clearly unprepared, her soldiers immediately fell to the Orokin Neural Sentry, a security system that uses void energy to physically change the body and minds of intruders, turning them into guards.
Pick a card, Dreamer. Ooh, the asphyxiation of hearts? Lucky draw.
We are being observed. The Worm Queen wishes to gloat. Her troops are no longer her own, but she cares little for that. The Orokin Neural Sentry is attempting to purge you from this place. Stand by for life support.
Not one to take risks, the Lotus sends us to recover Varuna, the wolf that guarded the Orokin during their yuvan ceremonies, the transhumanist ritual where an Orokin would transfer their mind into a younger, healthier child, thus extending their life through a ritualistic murder.
All manner of Orokin technology may work here due to the Circulus's proximity. If you have a Necramech, you may use it.
They did this through the mysterious substance called Kuba, and siphoning a massive amount of void energy through an open rift.
Big Mommy never told you about the Uvans, did she? Dreamers lining up to be skin. Not my thing, though. Too much baggage, don't you think?
Wary of what else lurks within the void.
It's as if the void wants us to find this. Void signatures, but outside the corrupted. They are draining your life support, and fast. Eliminate them quickly.
Varuna and her pack, Dinar, Raksh, Lycath, and Ulfrin, patrolled the Yuvan theater. This is her story.
The Laverian is always open. Care to leave something to help keep the lights on? Oh, humbled, truly. Impressive, isn't she? The relentless hunting shadow of the Knight of Naga Drums. The last thing many an Orokin lord ever saw. Varuna, she-wolf incarnadine. The heart of the pack, hunter of godprey. We remember her as a primal horror, the pitiless devourer, stalking burning cities of white and gold, slavering for godflesh. This was not always so. Once, Varuna was the obedient guardian of the Circulus, the holiest of yuvan temples, upon none other than veiled Lua. Like a loyal beast, Varuna would roam Lua with her 4 steel-maned wolves, the stealthy Dinar, the invigorating Raksh, the stalwart Lycath, and the fierce Ulfron. But what they were sworn to guard was perverse, wrong. In a ceremony reeking of Kuva, the Orokin candidate would force their consciousness into the new chosen body, the yuvan, consigning the mind of the hapless former owner to oblivion. They call this life-extending process continuity. Executor Tuvul was one of the ruling 7 and head of the yuvan clerisy, high-ranking officiators who enacted the hideous ritual, all of whom were now all dead, torn apart, all save for Tuvul, now a man pursued. He abandons his family to that night of horrors, his friends to the flames, and whips his slaves to ferry his decrepit, dying body to his personal ship. Destination? Void-locked Lua. Purpose? To initiate one final ceremony. To trade one last body, one last life for his own, before the Empire burned. To slip the noose and escape the relentless hunting shadow that had, one by one, in just one night, found and eviscerated every last one of his clerisy peers. The shadow that had once protected them. I never liked Tuvul. What followed made me loathe him even more.
Dinar.
Here is Dinar, the Shadowed. He gave Varuna the gift of stealth, that she might only take by surprise, but never be taken. Let us speak of what made the Circulus special. The first Void Conjunction. It came suddenly, steeping Lua in malevolent, lashing void stuff. Within the moonplasm, thoughts took horrifying physical forms. Images dredged up from childhood nightmares or adult neuroses were abruptly tangible and real. Madness overtook many. It was to this place, the Circulus, that Tuvul fled, through a void tormented by an extremely unusual conjunction. Thrashing eddies, violent currents, and the appearance of horrifying beasts never seen before or since. It was as if, some have noted, the fabric of the universe echoed the upheaval, tearing apart the fabric of the origin system. Coincidence? I have lived too long to believe so, but can provide no explanation greater than that. Hoping against hope that the void would keep the shadow that stalked him from picking up his trail, Tuvul touched down upon the powdery skin of sacred Lua. What Tuvul lacked in loyalty, he made up for with rat cunning. He should have known better.
The night of Naga Drums, the same night the Warframes began their rebellion against the rulers of the Orokin Empire by killing the Seven. Executor Tuvul, known to have been responsible for the failed jump to Tau, and thus the creation of the Tenno, now flees. Who was this shadow that chased him to Lua? Was it another Warframe? For now, we do not know for sure. Raksh.
It is unclear precisely why Lua is a site of very special void conjunctions, but enacting continuity within the Circulus and Uvarium thereupon guaranteed a safe and strong transition, so long as certain rituals were correctly observed. A privilege reserved only for the Seven themselves. Imagine the scene, as the innocent yuvan would have witnessed it. the vivid insanity of it all. The appointed soprana, bridging the gap between worlds with her song. The Orokin Executor, shrilling the ritual words. The bone-white void creeping in on all fronts. The Kuva, steaming scarlet in its glass bowl. And the imposing wolf giant, Varuna, pacing the perimeter, 4 loyal wolves at her side. This wolf you see here is Raksh, the Defender, Varuna's own loyal guardian, as she protected her Orokin overlord from whatever madnesses the Void Conjunction would bring, of which there were many. And on that night, Tuvul had no such guardian. Quite the opposite. Now, Tuvul would need flesh into which he could pass, but the shipments of fresh young bodies from across the system were no more. Tuvul, we will see, had laid a dark contingency. Rat cunning, as I said.
The passage describes the Yuvan theater and the method by which they performed continuity. Though we hold the image of the Orokin as a superior technocracy, the description provides us a glimpse into the more esoteric, cult-like practices and beliefs of the ruling class, ruling less by knowledge and more so by privileged access to processes they know work yet do not fully understand. When we find the Uvarium and the Circulus in a Void Conjunction mission, we can visit this scene and see for ourselves everything that is described. Tuvul's stage for reciting scripture. The Kuva. The transference chambers and the Void. Lycath.
The third of Varuna's wolves, Lycath, the stalwart brother, the provider, and soul of the pack. We know that Varuna and her wolves had served rite after rite. She had watched the mists and savagely destroyed anything that menaced the ceremony, flanked by Lycath's fury. The Yuvan ceremony, continuity as they called it, was an obscenity. The Orokin elite, aged and foul, would slouch and leer as the Yuvan, young men and women, cultivated on Red Mars and worlds beyond for this dire purpose, were paraded before them. They would make their choice, conduct the ritual, and then, well, that young life would be gone. And when those eyes opened once more, it would be their murderer looking out from behind them. Is it any wonder Varuna, freed from the leash of loyalty, was so intent upon making a meal of the Yuvan clerisy? I think not. Let's get to dessert, shall we?
Warframe.
Behold, Ulfram the Fierce, the most formidable of Varuna's sept. Executor Tuvul scrambled to set up the ritual room. This time, the ceremony was different. Instead of a soprana, there was a mere mandochord playing automated notes. And instead of the prepared Yuvan, there was a most unusual cryopod containing a young child sleeping peacefully. The aforementioned contingency. In Tuvul's hands, so it is said, were an artifact and a codex belonging to none other than Albrecht Entrati himself, father of void travel, and a man who had sacrificed his sanity to it. Tuvul opened the book to pages strange and profane. We know this, having retrieved it from the site much later. It is my belief that Tuvul intended to protect himself from the horrors the Void would unleash, using what amounted to a madman's grimoire. A desperate act indeed. I like to imagine that as he parted his withered lips to begin the ceremony, to call down the Void, that was the moment he heard Ulfram's ravening howl.
Executive Tuvul had prepared the body of Atenno to be his next body. Rather than using the rituals he had practiced, Tuvul must have attempted to use Albrecht and Trotti's research to better commune with the void. Could he have been attempting to contact the man in the wall? We may never know. What we do know is how his plan ultimately failed.
From void signatures, evidence at the site, and what recording technology survived that once-in-a-lifetime void conjunction, I infer the following. Forgive an old man some dramatic license. The kuva was poured, the lamps were lit, and the ritual of continuity began. As Tuvul intoned the barbarous versicles of continuity, a horde, the breadth of which had never before been seen at such a ceremony, massed in the gathering void. Things with 2 heads or none, lopsided, broken-horned, perhaps drawing their being from Tuvul himself, as if expressions of his vice. At this moment, I believe Varuna and her pack attacked, hoping to end the ceremony before it began. No such luck. The circle site was later found to be treacherous with the remnants of slain abominations. Varuna and her wolves tore into the manifestations, rending with axe and fang, while Tuvul droned on, panicked. The pack hacked and tore their way through the throng toward him. Why was Tuvul not the first to fall? I cannot answer. Perhaps Albrecht's work had something to it, or perhaps those beasts simply understood that this wretched old man was the only thing keeping the door open for them. Tremors shook the surface of Lua, and a great cry rang out, like that of a mother crying for her children. Tuvul sweated. The kuva trembled in its bowl. Varuna was relentless, demons falling to blade and fang. But it was not enough. The hordes of the void are without number, and this one, if hell has a hell, then those monsters knew it well. Gentle-eyed Raksh was the first to fall to scything blades. They killed Lycath next, then Dinar, and Ulfrun last of all. Varuna had howled many times before, in hunger, in anger, and in triumph. But now, for the first time, she howled in grief.
As Executor Tuvul conducted the ceremony, something else came charging out of the void. Creatures who, unlike anything the Origin system has seen before, belonged to the void. Varuna succeeded in stopping the onslaught, but lost her faithful companions in kind.
Varuna trod and swung without relent toward the circle, carrying by their silver scruffs the severed heads of her fallen, beloved wolves, severed from their dead bodies by her own hand. With one last ululating cry, Tuvul's ritual reached its peak. Within the crypod, the child's eyelids fluttered, and Varuna staggered. In what scratchy stills survived in void-corrupted data masses, what I saw between child and Warframe was recognition. Tuvul took some meager scrap of courage from this delay and reached for the bowl of Kuva, now boiling and steaming with weird energies. Varuna struck him aside and seized the energized Kuva, not for herself, but for her wolves. Holding it high, she doused herself and her slain packmates with it. Embraced by the seething crimson glow, connective tissue propagated, sinew reached for bone, and within that marriage of occultism and science, she and her beloved wolves became one. Her brethren lived again. in her. Varuna was now, and evermore, the heart of the pack. Cheated of his continuity, Tuvul turned to flee. But his former warden was having none of it. Those who came after found nothing but gnawed bones, some of them unusually long, twisted within shreds of white gold raiments. Good. I did salvage one final image from those void-corrupted data masses, however. That of Varuna herself, striding back toward her craft, the child cradled in her arms. Curious.
Don't worry, I'll take very good care of Varuna. I have just the spot in the kennel for her.
Tenno, the Void has summoned a new presence and it craves our life support. Destroy these manifestations. The Queens have sought out Warframes before. Vor sought to present them with yours. We cannot let the worm have Varuna.
The Tenno body that Executor Tuvul was trying to obtain was the selfsame Tenno that was united with Varuna. To let the ceremony complete would mean to not only lose herself, but the spirits of her friends. Instead, Varuna performed a continuity on herself, allowing her wolves to become a part of her body and mind, 5 beings living as one. The ultimate fate of Executor Tuvul, killed by one of the very same children he sentenced to death. Lua's Prey is the perfect example of how Warframe delivers on its hard lore, its plot, without necessarily throwing it in the player's face. Everything that is described in the Leverian Museum may also be seen by the player should they decide to tour the Yuvan Theater, either in a mission or in a photo mode. In the Conjunction survival missions, we catch our first glimpses of the Voidbound warriors that are reminiscent of the Dax, as well as the Thrax warriors that seem to match the descriptions of the empty-bodied creatures that stormed out of the void. When we approach the Uvarium, the Worm Queen mocks the practice of using continuity. She has every reason to. She would see how obsessed her sister became with being able to perform one last continuity to extend her life. Perhaps the Worm Queen simply isn't interested, as she is still young. Perhaps she has some other means to preserve herself when the time comes. Exploring the Uvarium, we of course see the familiar void trees and golden accoutrements we are accustomed to from Orokin architecture, yet one half of the room is clearly destroyed in the battle against the void creatures, and Executor Tuvul's ensuing death penalty. A void root is severely overgrown, due, I think, to an overabundance of void energy. A window into the void, mysteriously, the circle of the void perfectly reads the circumference of Earth when you peer just past the window. While Lua's Prey doesn't have much in the way of expanding on the themes of the story, it helps to expand on the plot by letting you actually be where the history was made. The circumstances of the Warframe Rebellion, the ongoing open secret of the Tenno relationship to the Warframes, the ultimate fate of one of the story's central antagonists, and a glimpse at what is to come when we finally take that faithful step into the void. Stay true.